Welcome everyone to part two of the series My Biggest Learning from CAT. Before I start, I want to thank all of you for your wonderful response to the previous video and for all of you giving us suggestions and your questions. Right? So I'll introduce myself again. My name is Savi Joseph. I'm from Chennai and we've got the same team here. We've got Krish, Bhaskar, Musfera, Yukta and Hiteshi. Right? So guys, let's start. So I want to talk about familiarizing yourself with the exam hall, with the exam day. Okay. So my first question is how important is it? And as a new student, right, who's never attempted CAT before, how do you do this?
Okay, so I believe your body really needs to adjust to that specific exam pattern. So, just how we discussed in our previous video, so how important it is to plan for the last 20 days, I think it's equally important and essential to familiarize yourself with the exam atmosphere of the D day. So, what I used to do was grab a chair, sit in a well lit room, switch off your mobile phones. You do not want any distractions, and replicate that environment all over again. Give that time period. So, for me, it was 3 hours. For you guys, it's going to be 2 hours. So, sit there for those 2 hours and attempt your paper as to how you would do it on the D day. That really helps to build your concentration.
So yeah, on the contrary, I actually think that you do not need to have a perfect environment when you're giving your mocks, because come the exam day, it's not going to be a perfect situation where you're not going to have any disturbances. So this is what I did. I did not just restrict myself to give my exam in one particular place, because that would just make me very used to a particular environment. So I gave my mocks sometimes in my room, sometimes in my living room, and that really helps. And I'll tell you why. Because I had a similar experience in the exam hall. I had a guy who was sitting right next to me, and he was reading out aloud, and that can be very distracting if you're not used to being in a situation where you are in a different environment. That's just going to make things a little more difficult on the exam day.
Speaking about the environment and familiarizing yourself with the exam, right? There's this very important guideline that many of us tend to overlook, which is there in the hall ticket, which is to visit your exam location, right? Although many students think, what's the point? There are certain serious implications to this particular guideline. So, can you guys brief on this?
I like to think I'm a paranoid person, and even I haven't ever been to an exam center before the exam day. With that said, I agree that this can have severe implications on your exam, considering the scale of CAT and the number of institutes that hold it. So I feel it is important for you to get familiarized with the exam center as much as you can, down to the street address, down to the town, the place, down to the road, if you can. The organizers have done a great job of integrating the admit card with the Google Maps. So with the click of a button, you can easily see it on Google Maps. And I feel that makes it very easy to, get acquainted with the thing.
I agree entirely with Bhaskar. It's very important. Another thing I think I would say that, be sure to carry a little bit of extra time when you reach. So reach a little early than that time, which has been advised by the organizers. This is because even if you get the right institute, you have to know that these institutes can be really large. So you will need time to figure out which building, which classroom are you actually supposed to be appearing for the exam in. So take a lot of buffer so that for any contingencies that might fall in.
Absolutely. So I hope all of you have understood the implications of not visiting your exam hall on time or not actually checking it and taking it as a joke about visiting the exam center. So what actually happens when you don't do this, right, is panic in the last minute. And another area where all of us feel panic during this planning phase are bad mocks, right? All of us have given it. All of us have had a terrible score during one of those dreaded mocks, right? So I mean, how do you counter this? What do you do when you've given a bad mock?
So I think you've rightly pointed out that this bad mock situation happens all the time, and there isn't like one person who must have not had a bad mock. It really puts you down. But the one thing that you need to really keep in mind is that do not get too complacent with a good mock and do not get demotivated with a bad one. So that said, I really had a series of bad mock exams. And what I did is I went back to my professor and I asked him, how do I really get over this? And he said, maybe try giving a couple past years CAT paper. And that worked for me. My raw score as well as percentile shot up because what essentially happens is that you are dealing with a larger pool then, whereas your class group is much smaller. So that in a way really helped me out, and I think I would strongly recommend everyone to take a couple past year mock papers to just get a good feeler of it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Krish, because that's exactly what I did during my time. I gave a few last year CAT papers, and that really boosted my confidence. Personally, I think mocks are the two preparation of CAT. Whatever you do prior to that is just, let's say, preparing for preparing. Everything that you do during your mocks are going to be really helpful. I would choose to go for quality over quantity. And by that, I mean, rather than going for more mocks, try to review your mocks more. So if you're doing 2 mocks a day, just give 1 mock and devote 3 hours to reviewing that mock. I think that can really help you guys out.
Speaking about reviewing the paper, that was something that I had a lot of difficulty with last time, about actually understanding how you're supposed to review the paper, right? So what are the key points that you actually look into your mock when you review?
So first of all, it's really important to treat your mock like your actual CAT exam. Be very serious while attempting your mock. And like Bhaskar mentioned, it's very important to review it. Spend a lot of time on reviewing your mocks rather than giving more in a day. So for example, if you're reviewing your quant section, focus on the topics that you're very strong at and work on those. Figure out some shortcut methods or some alternate methods that would save you time in the actual exam. Don't go with studying a new topic or getting acquainted with, say, probability, which you've ignored till now. So focus on your strengths and also learn how to disengage. Figure out where you've spent a lot of time during your mock, and probably don't do that in the actual exam. Spend like 30-40 seconds. If you can't figure out the solution to that question, move on, disengage, and try another one. I completely agree with Yukta. I think it's really important to review your mocks. It's almost like adding a feedback system into your overall strategy. And the way you keep reviewing your mocks, you actually optimize your strategy for your final day, and you're able to tailor out a plan to approach your final CAT paper. Work on your strengths. CAT is all about, how you play well to your strengths and how your strengths match up to the ones of others. So focus on your strengths and just keep calm and just keep reviewing mocks. Understand that, this is not just how many mocks you can give, but how well you can strategize for your final day.
I hope you all have taken from Musfara and Yukta, right, the importance of reviewing a mock. So, going to the next part of this discussion, something that we never faced during our CAT exam, right? The pandemic. It is a tough time for all of us. It has hit all of us in some way or the other. And since you all are going to give this during this particular situation, there is a lot of panic, there is a lot of confusion, right? So, my first advice would be to not panic, to stay level headed, stay calm. And guys, do you have any other suggestions being this situation? What would you tell the students who are going to write this year?
From a COVID perspective, I guess it's fair to say that we are venturing into uncharted waters. Nobody knows what to do. We are standing at a point in history. The world isn't prepared. The country isn't prepared. How do you expect the students to be prepared about this? So the best thing that you can do right now is follow the guidelines, put on your mask, use sanitizers. I'm sure they'll be available at the center as well. And in fact, from the COVID perspective and the exam as well, develop a short-term memory. Don't worry about what has happened. Don't worry about what's going to happen. Just be in the moment, put your blinkers on and just focus on the moment, focus on the question that's there in front of you and go right ahead. I'm sure you'll do great.
That is some great advice, Bhaskar. I don't think I could have put it in a better way. Before we finish this discussion, I want to thank you all once again for all your suggestions and all the questions you put out to us. We have another part coming up, which is going to be on stress points of the exam, on how to counter them, right? So until then, dive in those mocks and don't forget to review them. Thank you.